Hello, everyone. We're back. We're very excited today. We have another speaker who is very enthusiastic to talk. His name is Elad. I'm going to pull him up in a few seconds on the screen as well. Elad is from Israel, so he's presenting live from home, I reckon, at least. You might have seen him at quite some conferences already. He also has done an online conference at CodeFest Russia in May, if I'm completely correct. And before that, he has done quite some conferences all over the world. I've been looking it up on his website. He looks all really excited. He's going to talk about CSS today. Without further ado, I don't want to keep you any longer. Welcome, Elad.
Hey everyone. Good to be here.
That's good to hear. Thank you. I see that the crowd is already going up and up and up. It's the first time actually. We're today broadcasting live on YouTube. We always do that, but for the first time we also do it on Periscope. So actually our Twitter followers for the first time can also enjoy your talk. If you would like to view the talk in a higher definition, I think that's possible via the YouTube channel. That's that's youtube.com/frontendlove. Well, being willing to speak today. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, I will start. I will put my presentation. Yes.
Yes.
Great. As everyone see my screen?
All perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start. Okay. Hi everyone, if you don't know me, I'm Elad. I'm a CSS HTML architect. It means that I'm a kind of a front-end developer that does mainly CSS and HTML, and I love this very much. Besides this, I'm writing a lot of articles on CSS that you can find at medium.com in this link, and I'm a community leader of a big community in Israel that's called CSS Master Israel on Facebook with more than 5,500 members. And I love to talk about CSS in every meetup and every conference. And we are here in this online webinar, everything, of course, because the coronavirus pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic has disrupted our life in so many ways. Even for me that I needed to talk in two big conferences in Europe, of course, all the conference in all the world has been canceled. And in this situation in life, you maybe can be sad. But from my perspective in life, we don't have time to be sad because life is very, very short and we always need to think about how to create a good situation from a bad one. And this is exactly what I've done when the coronavirus pandemic has started. First, even if we are now working remotely from home, we still have a lot more time at home. We are not stuck in the traffic and in the evening when we are going to work. And we have a lot more time at home. And the first few days that I was staying at home, I was rearranging my apartment because this is the really first time that I have enough time at home. And I opened my sofa to a bed that sometimes I can sleep on my living room. The aquarium that didn't work for 5 years, I put some water and some fishes and everything to create a good mood to stay at home because now we will be a lot of time at home. And then came the first weekend of the coronavirus pandemic that we cannot go out anywhere. And I thought to myself, it's really the best time to create for myself a project. And I needed an idea. And I remember that 7 years ago, I created a pure CSS game that called Kill the Birds, that a lot of web developers all around the world loved it very much. And I thought to myself that in the last 7 years, I learned so many new tricks in CSS that now I can create a lot better one. But I needed an idea, and it was very easy one because we are now in the coronavirus pandemic. Why not to create the coronavirus game? And this is exactly what I have done. I created the Coronavirus Invaders. And everything that you see here in this game is done only with CSS and HTML. There isn't any single line of JavaScript in the code. All the logic, pure CSS and HTML. Yes, for the CSS, I'm using the Sass preprocessor, and for the HTML, I'm using HTML preprocessor that is called Pug, that we will talk about it later. But all the logic of all this game is done only with CSS. For example, if I will click the Who Am I button, it will open a pop-up. The logic of the opening and the closing of the pop-up is done purely with CSS. And when I will click the Save the World button, the main navigation will be hide, and the game itself will be shown. Even this logic is done with pure CSS. And when I will click those coronavirus creature, they will be disappear, and the score of the game will go up. Even that done only with CSS and HTML. And what about the countdown? Really? This done only by pure CSS. But before you're creating any project, the first important thing is to think about what you want to create and some inspiration to create it. And I needed some ideas of how to start this project, because when you're starting a project, it's like a blank page. And I needed a little bit of ideas of how to start to create this project. And I didn't know how to create those coronavirus creatures, but I remember that half a year ago, I saw a code pen that was done on a Canvas HTML, in painting on Canvas HTML, and those creatures little bit remind me the coronavirus creature. This was my starting point to create the coronavirus creature. And I needed a name for the game and how the main navigation look, and I didn't want everything to think about too much. And I remember the Chicken Invaders game. I don't know why, because in the last year, I almost don't play any games. And yes, my game is called the Coronavirus Invaders only because this game. And I took some ideas for how to create the main navigation from the same game. But in the end, the total result was very different from the Chicken Invaders, something very different. And when you're thinking about inspiration, it's not to create everything from nothing. Inspiration is to take some other old ideas, to take other parts of them and to create from them something new, something else. And this is exactly what I've done. The first thing that I wanted to do in the project is to create the coronavirus creature. And it's nice to see that this was my inspiration. And in the end, I created something very different, and I loved it because this is more mine. And then I started to create the HTML. But when I'm looking on the HTML, it's not just HTML element that I throw away on my HTML document. It's very important for me that it will be very readable, very structurable. And I'm looking on the HTML like thinking of an object-oriented. And I started to create the first coronavirus creature. I used here a label HTML element with the class of coronavirus. And inside, I put input type of radio. You may ask why I'm using here a label and why there is an input type radio inside. This is part of the logic of the game that we will talk about it a little bit later. But all the visual part are starting here with the body of the coronavirus creature, that inside we have all the 12 hairs and of course the 2 eyes of the coronavirus creature. But from the beginning, I saw that I have a lot of repetition in the HTML, and I don't want to do so much repetition. You can see all those 12 hairs that are being repeated, but this is an easy repetition, because in the real game, I have 100 coronavirus creatures, and you don't want to copy-paste them one by one. How can we do it in a different way? This is my first time that I'm using it in any project. I'm using here the Pug HTML preprocessor. The Pug HTML preprocessor gives you the possibility to do repetition without repetition. And of course, for the CSS, I'm using the Sass preprocessor that I'm using in the last 9 years for every project. And now, instead of writing all those 12 hairs, for example, I can now use the Pug HTML preprocessor and doing while loops and use variables. And this way, I created the while loop that going between 1 to 12 and doing this printing to the screen the span HTML element with the class of hair and the end value that is going up in every rotation. And as you can see, the writing of the Pug HTML preprocessor is very different from a regular HTML. And yes, you need to get used to this writing. And you cannot write half HTML and half Pug. If you are working with Pug, you have to write everything in Pug. And in this way, I updated all my HTML from regular HTML to the written of the Pug HTML preprocessor, and you need to get used to it. It isn't so easy to understand in the beginning, but I created all this project in 2 days of the weekend, and meanwhile that I built this project, I learned Pug. If I done it in the 2 days in the weekend, everybody can learn Pug. It's not so hard. But now I wanted to start to paint only the visual parts of the coronavirus creature. I started with the body of the coronavirus creature. I gave it first position relative. Why position relative? Because all the other parts need to be according to the body of the coronavirus creature. Then I gave it a width of 100 pixel and height of 100 pixel. Background color of black and border radius of 50%. This way it's getting the circle shape. And to create all of the eyes and to select the both classes of I1 and I2 together, I'm using here the attribute selector with the star character. This way, this select me both of the eyes, I1 and I2 together. And I give both of them width of 20 pixel, height of 26 pixel, background color white, and border radius of 50%. Because the width and the height is a little bit different, it's getting the egg shape that is nice to get. And to locate it, both of the eyes, I gave them position absolute, top 25%. The left eye I located from the left 25%, and little bit rotate to the inside with the transform property with a rotate Z value with 15 degrees. The second eye, the right eye, I located from the right 25% and rotate Z to the inner part with minus 15 degrees. To create the inner part of the eyes without adding another HTML element, I'm using here the before pseudo element that we have in CSS. And I gave both of the before pseudo element of both of the eyes width of 8 pixel, height of 8 pixel, background color black, and border radius of 50%. And as you may see, everything here is very easy. It's just circles, circles, and circles. To create the hair part of all the hair of the coronavirus creature, I'm using it the same idea to select all the classes between R1 until R12. I'm using the attribute selector with the star character again that select me all the classes that have in their name the hair value. And every hair is created from two boxes. The first boxes, I'm using it the after and before pseudo element. The root of the hair is the first box, this one. The crown of the hair is another box that I'm putting up above. And as you can see, it's getting a circle shape. How I'm doing it? Again, border radius of 50%. But now I want to locate all the 12 hairs all around the coronavirus creature. First, I'm positioning all of them with position absolute and put them exactly in the middle and the center of the body of the coronavirus creature. All the 12 hairs I'm just locating in the middle of the coronavirus creature. But now every one of them, I give them a different transform value. For the R1, I'm using the transform property with rotate Z of 0 degrees and translate Y of minus 65 pixel. This way it's going from here to here. But now the second hair need to go top but little bit to the right. How I'm doing it? The hair 2 will get the transform property, but now with rotate Z of 30 degree, and only then the translate Y of minus 65 pixel. And the translate Y, if it's going after the rotate Z value, it's getting effect from the rotate Z value. And because of that, it's going from here to here. And if you didn't use the transform property a lot, you need to know that the order of the value are very important because they're affecting each other. It's meaning that if I was writing first the translate Y and only then the rotate Z, it was acting different. And you need to know how to use it and get deeper if you know to learn how to use the transform property correctly. And in this way, I located all the 12 hair of the coronavirus creature. Every one of them, as you can see, getting a different rotate Z value and getting bigger in every one of the hair, and the same translate Y value. This way, all the hair located all around the coronavirus creature. But as you can see, there is a lot of repetition in this code, and we as a web developers don't like repetition. How can we solve it? If we are using the Sass preprocessor, we can use the for loop that we have in Sass. First, I'm creating a Sass variable of start position. I give it a value of 0 degrees. Then I create the for loop with another Sass variables of I. This variable is going between 1 to 12 and created me dynamically all the classes between R1 until R12. In every rotation of the loop, the start position is getting bigger. In the first rotation, it's 0 degrees plus 30 degrees, and I'm just putting this value inside here. In the second rotation, it will be 60 degrees, 90 degrees, and so on and so on. And in this way, this for loop creating me this CSS. in a very easy and more readable way without repeating in the code. But I wanted that the creature will feel a lot more alive, and I wanted to edit some animations. But because the transform property is different in every one of the air, it means that I need to create a different animation for every one of the air, but you don't want to create all those keyframes one by one. Because that, I just added them and created them dynamically in the same for loop. This way I have 12 different keyframes between air move 1 until air move 12. But still, all the hairs are moving in the same times, everyone outside and everyone inside. And to tell them to move in a different timeline, of course, I can use the animation delay. But if I'm using animation delay for with positive values, for example, let's say, for example, the first hair have animation delay of 60 milliseconds, the second one 120 milliseconds, the third one 180 milliseconds. It means that when I will refresh the page, the first millisecond, the hair will stuck, and only after those milliseconds, it will start to move. And you don't want that. You want that the hair will move from the first millisecond of the page. How can we do it in other way? We can, instead of using positive values, you can use animation delay with negative values. For example, first hair with minus 60 milliseconds, the second one with minus 120 milliseconds, and the third one, for example, with minus 180 milliseconds. This way, when you're using negative value for the animation delay, when you're loading the page, the animation is act like it already started in the past, even before the page is loaded. And this way, all the hairs are moving in a different timelines. This is a very nice trick to use a negative animation delay. But I wanted this creature to be a lot more alive, and I added the two animations for the eyes. One for the inner part of the eyes, as you can see, and I wanted to create another effect that the eyes are getting closed in every 5 seconds for a half a second. How can I do it? I added another after pseudo element for both of the eyes. The after pseudo element that is in the eyes is like a box. It's a box with a width of 100%, height of 0 pixel, and background color black. And you don't see it. But in every 4.5 seconds, for a half a second, it's getting a height of 100%. And these ways, the eyes are getting close. Very nice trick to create in CSS creatures. But enough talking about how I created those coronavirus creature. Let's talk about how I created all the logic of all this game. Let's start understand how games are built and understand the frames that we have in every game that we are seeing. In our game, in the coronavirus game, I have 4 frames in the game. The main frame of the game is the main navigation frame. Yes, this is the main navigation frame. This is our first frame that we have in the game. The second frame in the game is when I will click the auto play button, it will open a pop-up. This is another frame. And yes, frame can be on other frames. The third frame that we have is another pop-up. When I'm clicking the OMI button, it's open another pop-up, the OMI pop-up. This is our third frame. The last frame is when I will click the Save the World button, it will close the main navigation frame and open the main game frame itself, where we are playing the game. This is our last frame, the 4th frame that we have in the game. How I'm writing this in my HTML? I'm just creating separated section for every one of the frame. As you can see here, the first frame is the game menu frame, the second game frame is the game frame itself, the third frame is the OMI pop-up, and the last frame is the autoplay pop-up. This way, I'm creating every one of them separated. But when we are loading in the first time the game, we just want to see the main navigation frame. How we hiding all the other frames? In a very easy way, we just give all the other frame display none. And in this way, we don't see them in the first load of the game. But now I want to create a logic, some flag that will tell me when those other frames are opened or closed. And I need an idea of how to create those flags only in CSS and HTML. And how I'm doing it, I'm adding in the beginning of the HTML document checkbox inputs. And as you can see, in the beginning of the HTML document, I created 3 inputs with a type of checkbox that every one of them get an idea, a specific idea. For example, the first one has an idea of toggle game. And what does it mean? If it's unchecked, it's meaning that I want to see the menu frame, but I don't want to see the game frame. If it's checked, it means that I want to see the game frame and don't want to see the game menu frame. These are our flags that we have in the game. The other inputs are more simple. They are the pop-up inputs. For example, the checkbox with the idea of how to play pop-up. If it's unchecked, I don't want to see the autoplay pop-up. If it's checked, I want to see the autoplay pop-up. The same way for the UMI pop-up. If it's unchecked, I don't want to see the UMI pop-up. And if it's checked, of course, I want to see the UMI pop-up. But I need a way to create this flag like checked or unchecked. I need a way to trigger all those inputs in the real game. How can I trigger those inputs? And here is the beginning of all these small magics that we can do in CSS. The button in the main navigation that you saw are not a button HTML element. They are a label HTML element. They just look like buttons. And here all the magic is happening. As you can see, we have here 3 buttons that are not buttons. As you can see here, they are label HTML elements. And label HTML element can be connected to inputs. And here in our case, it's connected for the checkboxes that we have in the beginning of the document. How I connected these labels to those inputs. For example, the Save the World like button, as you can see here, is connected with the for attribute to the Toggle game ID, this one. And now, when you will click the Save the World button, it will trigger this checkbox and change its status from unchecked to checked. And if you will click it again, it will be unchecked. You click it again, checked, as many times that you will click it. The same way, of course, for the 2 other buttons. For example, we take another one. If I will click the How to Play button, it will trigger the input checkbox with the idea of how to play pop-up, this one. And if you will click it once, it will get checked. If you click it twice, it will get unchecked. But this just triggering those inputs from check to uncheck and doesn't do anything else. Now we need to create the visual logic that it will show or hide other frames that we have in the game. How are we doing it? We have first the check pseudo class in CSS. And we can say, for example, for input with the example of idea of checkbox, if you are an input of checkbox and you are checked, you can go to any sibling element that you want and tell him to be display block, display none. And this is exactly what I'm doing in the game. For example, if I'm clicking the How to Play button, I'm triggering the input with the idea of how to play pop-up. And now it's checked. And if it's checked, this selector will start to work and will go to the sibling element with the idea of how to play and put it with display block. This way, I'm showing the how to play pop-up. The same way I'm doing with the Who Am I button. If I'm clicking the Who Am I button, it will trigger the input of checkbox with the idea of Who Am I pop-up, and this input will get checked. And if it's checked, this selector will start to work and will go to the sibling element with the idea of Who Am I and just put it with display block. This way, when I'm clicking this both button, it's opening these both pop-ups. Okay? But wait a minute. How I'm closing this pop-up? These buttons in the pop-up, again, are not buttons. For example, in the autoplay pop-up, the X buttons and the close buttons are labels. And these labels of the autoplay pop-up, for example, have the for attribute that is connected to the checkbox with the idea of how to play pop-up. And when this pop-up is open, it's meaning that the checkbox is already checked. And if you will click this or this, it will uncheck the checkbox in the beginning of the HTML document, and this selector will stop to work, and it will get, again, the display none that we have by default because our definition that we defined in the beginning. Okay, this is nice, how we create all this pop-up to open and close, but wait a minute. What about when I'm clicking the Save the World button? When I'm clicking the Save the World button, I'm doing 2 operations, not 1. First, I'm hiding the main navigation, and then I'm showing the game frame itself. How can we do, instead of 1 operation, 2 operations? What I'm doing here, it's really very similar. For example, the checkbox that I have the idea of toggle game, if it's checked, I'm going first to the game menu frame and put it with display none, and then I'm going to the game frame and put it with display block. And in this way, I can create as many operations that I like. How many that you want. And yes, this is written, of course, with the Sass preprocessor, but you can create it in CSS in two separated selector, but it's more readable to create it with Sass, of course. But now let's talk about one of the most amazing tricks that we have in this game. When I'm clicking the coronavirus creature, they are being disappear and the score in the game is going up. How I'm doing it? First, of course, I'm using the CSS counters that we have in CSS quite a while. But before we will talk about the logic of the CSS counters, let's talk about the logic of every coronavirus creature that we have in the real game. In the beginning, I told you that every coronavirus is wrapped with the label HTML element, and inside we have an input type of radio. But all the style, the visual style, are starting with the body of the coronavirus here. All the eyes, the hair are inside the body. And this is all the visual styles. But because this all the visual style of the virus is wrapped with a label HTML element, and inside we have an input type radio, when you're clicking no matter which place on the coronavirus creature, because it's wrapped with a label, the input type of radio that we have inside, it's getting triggered automatically. You don't even need to have ID on the for attribute. You just put it inside and it's triggered automatically. This way, when you're clicking the coronavirus creature, the input type radio that you have inside is getting triggered, and from status of unchecked, it's getting to be in status of checked. And in this way, I can hide the style of the body. How I'm doing it? I'm creating a selector, for example, input type radio. If you are checked with the check pseudo selector that we have, go to the sibling element of body and put it with opacity of 0. And this way, when you click the coronavirus creature, they are being disappear. But now you want to count all those dead viruses, or more correctly, all those viruses that have an input type of radio in the status of checked. First, you need to create a CSS counter to define it. It needs to be defined before all those input type radio that you have in the game. I just declare it on the body HTML element. How you define a CSS counter? You're using the counter reset property. As you can see, I'm putting it on the body HTML element, creating the CSS counter with the counter reset property. You give it any name that you want. I gave it the name Corona. And for every input with a type of radio that is with status of checked, the counter increment will go up. And I'm just using here the same value that I created here. And to put the score to the screen, I'm using here another div with the class of sum, meaning summarize. And I'm using here the after pseudo element that we have. And I'm using here the content property. And the content property can get the CSS function, the counter function. And the counter function get the corona value that we increment here and created here. Because it's a very complicated example, let's see it in live code. In this example, I created 5 coronavirus creature, but without all the eyes and the hair, that it will be a lot more simple. But in the real game, all the eyes and the hairs are inside this, yes, in the body itself. And as you can see, I have here 5 label and 5 inside of them input of type radio, and all the visual part of the coronavirus are in this div with class of body. This is the black circle that you see here. And because it isn't the real game, I'm showing you the input type radio that we have inside. In the real game, the input type of radio is with opacity of 0. In the end, I added the div with class of summarize that print us the total score to the screen. Now I'm creating the CSS counter on the body HTML element, counter reset, and I gave it a name that I want, Corona. And in all the input type of radio, if they are status of checked, counter and increment the same corona value that we created in the top. Beside of this, if the input type radio is checked, go to the sibling element with the class of body and put it with opacity of 0. This one, yes, the visual part, the black circle that you see here, is getting opacity of 0. And to summarize the total score to the screen, I'm selecting the selector with the class of sum. I'm using the after pseudo element with the content property and the CSS counter function, and just printing the corona value that we can increment here and create it here. Let's check it out if it works. We click here and you can see the score is going up, and you can see that the radio buttons are getting checked. And this way I'm creating a real score for a real CSS game. And it's really one of the most amazing tricks to create in pure CSS. Okay, let's continue to the next trick. To create a pure CSS countdown. How can it be? Let's see it in live code. As you can see in the HTML, we don't have any number values. This number are coming from a CSS animation. That you will understand what you are looking at, let's put here a value. Let's put it the 1 number. And you see that it's stuck in the middle. Yes, here. And these both numbers are the before and after pseudo elements. Let's reset this code pen. That will start again. Great. The before and after pseudo element, I'm using both of them in animation. The countdown animation. The countdown animation is animation that doing to the content value. And it's meaning that the value is getting automatically from the animation. It's going between 9 to 0. But here we see between 99 to 0. How I'm doing it? I'm doing the same animation in a different way. One for the before pseudo element, this one, and the second one for the after pseudo element. For the before pseudo element, I'm calling the animation for 100 seconds and only one iteration. And because it's 100 seconds and one iteration, we have here 10 numbers between 9 to 0. In every 10 seconds, it's going one number down. 10 seconds, another number down. And one iteration, it will finish here in the 0 value. It will do here the animation only one iteration. And how it's stuck on the 0 value, I just put here the forward keyword value that we have in CSS animation. For the second number, the after pseudo element, I'm using the same animation, but now for 10 seconds and 10 iteration. And this way, every 1 second, the number is going one down between 9 to 0. When it will finish, it do it again and again for 10 iterations. And after 10 iterations, it will stack again on the 0 value, again because I put here the forward keyword value. Let's see that the animation is really stuck on the 0 value. And it's nice to see that it's very synchronized, the numbers, but they are very synchronized only because the animation is very synchronized. And it's really separated numbers that working separated. Really amazing way to create a pure CSS countdown. Let's continue to the next trick, random values. And first, let's understand why we want random values. Let's look again on the game itself. I will refresh the screen and I open the game again. And all the coronavirus creature, the position in the game, they have 6 different positions in the game. And the position that you see the viruses are randomized. Even the size, the scale of the size of the virus is randomized. Even the rotation is randomized. And it's meaning that I'm using here randomized value. How can I create random values in CSS? You can't, but you can do it with Sass. Let's see it in the live code because it's a very important example. Let's see, here it is. And I created 100 different keyframes for every one of the viruses. And because you don't want to copy paste, of course, I'm using here again the for loop that we have in Sass. This way, I'm creating 100 different animations for every one of the viruses. And because every one of the viruses need to be with different places and location in the real game, as you can see, every one of them have 6 different locations in the game. And in every position from those 6 positions, for example, the translate y value, I'm using here the random function that we have in Sass. Yes, it's only with Sass. And you can put any number that you want here. I put it the number 80. It's meaning that the number that is being randomized is between 1 to 80, and I just double it with 1 VH. And in this way, in 6 positions in the game, every virus get different location. I done it even for the scale and even for the rotation for every one of the viruses. For you to believe me that there is such things, random values in Sass, let's see a live example for that. Let's see the compile HTML first. As you can see, you have here 6 li HTML elements and they are empty. The text that you see here is coming with the before pseudo element that we have in CSS. And I created all the value inside, again with the for loop that we have in Sass, and the random function that we have in Sass. Again, the same way that you saw in the example, I just randomized a number between 1 to 80 and double it with 1 VH. And these numbers that you see here are randomized. You don't believe me? Let's check it out. Let's do some change in the Sass. I will press enter, and you will see that all these values are getting changed. And I will do enter again. And as you can see, the numbers are randomized, and it's a really nice trick to create something that is look like a more real game, because it's not going in the same direction all the times. All the viruses have different location because I'm using this random function that we have in Sass. Okay, let's continue to our last trick. You didn't saw it, but after 100 seconds in the real game, I want to put the game over curtain, and I need to put it in a precise timeline. I need to put it exactly after 100 seconds. How can we do to tell the browser to load this animation after 100 seconds exactly? And this is one of the most easiest tricks. For example, you know that you can give animation duration, and I gave it animation duration 0.6 seconds. But I want, for this example, to tell the animation to load, for example, after that it will start to load after 5 seconds. How can I tell the animation to start to load after 5 seconds? I can use the animation delay, and I can tell it precisely when to load. And in this way, in the real game, I'm just putting here a value of 100 seconds. For you to believe me that it's so easy, let's refresh the screen and we'll count between 1 to 5. Let's see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Game over. Okay. So we talk about it here, a lot of CSS tricks, and to create a pure CSS game. And yes, you now maybe know how to create a pure CSS game. But this isn't the most important important thing to take from this talk. The most important things to take from the talk is to create your own project. And it doesn't matter which project. It can be pure CSS game. It can be any other project that you want to create in code. And why is that? I think we as a web developers, or we as an adult, we forget that the best way to learn stuff is by playing games, playing. It's even work if when we are children, we're playing and we learn new stuff. When animals like cats, then when they are kittens, they are playing with each other, and this way they learn how to hunt. And they enjoy it because they have fun. And if you're having fun, nothing can be hard for you. And even if it's hard, you're enjoying and you will succeed in the end. And if you are enjoying, you will love your job more a lot. And create your own project. You will enjoy, you learn new stuff. In the end, you will be a better web developer. And in the end, you will get better salary. And the most important thing, you will enjoy. This is the most important things to do in life. Enjoy and having fun. And this is the most important thing that you want to take from here. Create any project, enjoy, create fun, and at the end, you will succeed in a lot of other ways in your own life. And if you want to know about more of this pure CSS trick in the game and how I created the CSS creature, I will retweet these both articles in the end of the talk in my Twitter account. And of course, if you want to follow me, this is my Twitter account. And to see all my other articles, this is my link for my Medium articles in here. And you can see all my other talks in my own website in here. And my friends, thank you very much for listening. I don't hear you. I don't.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, great. No, here we go.
Okay, I think I'm going to repeat the last 3 minutes now because I've been talking to my screen now for 3 minutes. So I was saying, I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about the talk, but looking at the comments, everybody has really, really enjoyed it. Thanks,
Right.
Raymond. Yeah, I know that I had to unmute, yeah. I think it has been a very practical talk also for people to really show what the possibilities actually are, and maybe something that we do not emphasize enough within the front end world, where we maybe give sometimes a little bit too much attention to JavaScript, as where these are really important things to make the pie complete, of course, and to put the cherries on the cake and to put great basics there. So yeah, where can we expect some more talks of you, Elad?
Yes, just tell me and I will be glad to talk. And I have a lot of talk and I will be glad to talk if you want in your conference, in other meetups. Just contact me and I'll be glad. Yeah,
Sure.
I have a lot of free time now.
Well, I'm pretty sure you're going to find a great new challenge.
Yeah. This Corona time it still give us a new possibility that we didn't have before, because we have a free time. Free time is a free time for new possibilities.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, to explore new things.
Yeah, exactly.
I think everybody has really enjoyed it. I don't really see any direct questions. I think that in this case, that's really a positive thing instead of a negative thing. I think it has been so clear and so practical for people that they're probably already trying stuff out as we speak. As Dimitri said, very useful information. And yes, as you said, you will share this sheet, these slides on your Twitter account.
Yes, of course.
And we are happy to inform the world that you did so by retweeting and putting it in our newsletter.
Great.
If the watchers are, or if the viewers, not the watchers, if the viewers are curious about other things we do, you can visit our website. It's www.frontenddeveloperlove.com. I really want to thank Elad for presenting today. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add to your talk?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, Raymond actually has a more practical or maybe job perspective question. So he said, is there a demand for CSS/HTML only devs?
Yes, there is a demand. Of course, I always say, for example, for every 100 regular front-end job, let's say, for example, you have only 5 jobs for CSS, HTML, developer, architect, or anything. But there is still a big difference between these jobs, because for every 100 developers jobs that you have opportunities, there may be just only 5 for you, because in the front end web developer, you have a lot of, for example, Vue, React, or Angular, and you have so many stuff that it's very hard for a front end developer to find the correct job. But for people that are doing, for example, CSS, and this is what they are good for, they know exactly what jobs to go, and it will be a lot more easy to get the job, because it's more precise to get. They know exactly what they want, and in our big web development world now, I think there is too much things that it's very hard for a lot of web developers to know exactly where to put their CV exactly, because there's too many possibilities that they aren't the correct for themselves. I hope that I explained correctly.
Yeah. You mean that there's like no central space to your opinion, for web developers in general to go to, or that it's too scattered around, or?
There is too many type of front-end jobs, and it's very hard to know exactly where you need to go. But if you are a CSS developer, expert in CSS, you know exactly where to go, and you know that you will be good for this job, because this is what you're doing. This is what I'm best to be.
Yeah, totally understand. And is this something you will see during Corona? Do you think the remote jobs will grow at this stage, or is that something you don't really see happening?
I think because the Corona pandemic, a lot of the remote thing will grow now. Even if we will go back to work from our offices, I think we'll 1 or 2 days or 3 days a week we'll work from home, and I think will be a new opportunity to work totally from abroad, and you can go travel anywhere, or take your laptop and just work from Thailand or wherever place that you want. I think we will get a lot new possibilities. That it's a good thing, because the coronavirus pandemic, and we didn't happy to get this coronavirus pandemic. But in every, like I told in the beginning, from every bad situation, you need to the good things. You cannot control the bad things that happening, but you can control what you can make from them. And this is the most part to take it from this talk. Always to find the good places from the bad places.
Yeah.
Because what you be sad, what it will help you to be sad? It doesn't help for us to be sad.
Yeah. Well, ending on that note, I really want to thank you very much. I hope that talking about Corona today, I hope that everybody, of course, is healthy and safe watching from home. We wish everybody the best and also the best health for watching from home, and also for everybody that's out there looking for new opportunities, like you, Elad. Let us know if we can help you in any way. We're here to help. We are one big community, and we should make use of that community as well.
Great to hear that.
All right. Thank you very much. Hope to talk to you soon again. Everybody watching, thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a view special. And Sibur and Willemo will be talking tomorrow. So same time tomorrow here live on YouTube and live on Periscope. Thank you very much, Elad.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.